Here's a riddle. This year, one man's fortune grew by $3.7 billion, 65th richest person on Earth, the pride of an entire continent. And this same year, the government of his own country dragged his crown jewel into court, accusing him of trying to swallow the national fuel market whole. The state that made him is now suing him. Everyone tells you the story of Aliko Dangote the same way, the grandson of a trader who started with a small loan and built Africa's greatest empire with his bare hands. The ultimate self-made man? Africa's richest man isn't self-made. He's something far more interesting and far more dangerous. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you the machine that actually built this fortune and why the country that built it can no longer turn it off. Let's be fair before we dig. The empire itself is not an illusion. Aliko Dangote was born in Kano, northern Nigeria, into a family of traders. In 1977, at 20 years old, he gets a loan from his uncle and starts trading cement, sugar, rice. Bags in, bags out. Buy abroad, sell at home. For 20 years, that's the business, importing what Nigeria doesn't make. Then comes the pivot that changes everything. And to his credit, almost nobody else dared. Stop importing, start building factories in a country where the power grid fails daily and the roads eat trucks alive. He builds anyway. The largest cement plant in sub-Saharan Africa, then flour, then sugar refining, and then the Monument, a private oil refinery outside Lagos. $20 billion, 650,000 barrels a day, with an announced expansion to 1.4 million, which would make it the biggest on the planet. Nigeria, an oil giant that absurdly imported its own gasoline for decades, finally refines at home. And next to it, a fertilizer complex among the largest anywhere, pushing exports across the Atlantic. Cement in 10 African countries, sugar, salt, flour, pasta. Walk through a Nigerian market and it's genuinely hard to fill a basket without paying this one man. Real factories, real jobs, real concrete. That part of the legend is true, and it matters because what comes next only works when it's welded onto something real. But every legend has a version for the cameras, and the version for the cameras skips one phone call. Before we open the machine room, if stories like this are your thing, the subscribe button is right there. One click and you're part of the investigation. The official story, talent, sweat, vision. That's what the interviews say. That's what the business schools teach. Now here's what the official story skips. In 1999, Nigeria returns to democracy. President Olusegun Obasanjo takes office and launches a policy with a technical name, backward integration. Translation, instead of importing, Nigeria will make things at home. Noble goal. Textbook economics. In practice, here's how it worked. Import licenses and bans, calibrated around the capacity of a handful of local producers. And no producer was better positioned than Dangote. When the government restricted cement imports, his plants were the ones ready to fill the gap. And a peer-reviewed study in the journal Business History would later put a name on the model. Development built on crony capitalism. Do the math on what a ban is worth. Block the cheap imports, and every bag of cement in a country of 200 million now comes from whoever owns the local kilns. You don't need to raise your price. The law raises it for you. Nigerians have long paid among the highest cement prices in the world. A ban isn't a policy. At this scale, it's a printing press. One story says it all. A rival businessman, Clearest, ran a huge cement import terminal. In 2005, the government abruptly changed the import rules, and Ibeto's terminal was shut down. The two men would fight in court for a decade. Years later, another rival, BUA, would trade open letters with the Dangote group, each accusing the other of gaming the same rulebook. The players change. The rulebook doesn't. And the man with the factories became the richest man in Africa. To be clear about what this is not, it's not a bribe in an envelope. Nothing here required breaking a law. The genius was more elegant. The law itself became the business model. And the part of truth, when other men got licenses, they pocketed the margin and built nothing. Dangote built. The machine needed both, the access and the executioner. That's the official story dismantled. But maybe you're thinking what half the comment section is thinking. That's just how Africa works. Second belief, and it's the comfortable one. This is an African corruption story. Exotic. Far away. Couldn't happen in a serious economy. Look closer at the mechanism and then look around. South Korea built its miracle on chaebols, family conglomerates fed with state credit and protected markets. Samsung, Hyundai. America's farm belt runs on subsidies. Its defense industry lives on government contracts. Its tech giants spend more on lobbying in Washington than most countries spend on their embassies. A century ago, a man named Rockefeller played the railroads and the legislatures like an orchestra. The game, get close to the state, shape the rules, then profit from the rules you shaped, is not African, it's universal. Dangote is simply its purest, most visible version. No shell of PACs and think tanks, just a man, a government, and a market. And like every player at this level, the money learned to travel. The Panama Papers, according to the investigation consortium ICIJ, linked him and his associates to more than a dozen offshore companies. One more thing the Mythbusters get wrong, though. Access isn't a magic wand. Dangote's instant noodles were crushed by a competitor. His $150 million tomato plant shut down within months, starved of supply. Where the state couldn't tilt the field, he lost like everyone else. Which tells you exactly what his real product is. Not cement, not sugar, proximity. And in 2023, proximity got an upgrade nobody was prepared for. Remember the refinery? $20 billion, the only one of its kind in the country. Understand what that object is. Nigeria pumps crude, but for decades couldn't refine it. So a nation of 200 million people imported nearly every liter of its gasoline. Fuel is the bloodstream. Transport, generators, food prices. Whoever refines it holds the tap. Since 2024, that tap has one owner, a private citizen. Now watch the power flip step by step. Step 1. Fuel marketers complain that the refinery is squeezing them out. Their association openly uses the word monopoly. Step 2. The state finds itself negotiating with him like a peer. Crude for narrow arrangements, supply deals, the kind of terms one government offers another. Step 3. The state's own oil company, NNPC, the very institution that embodies Nigeria's oil, goes to court. And in its filing, in May 2026, it accuses the Dangote refinery of seeking a fuel monopoly. Read that again. For 25 years, the state tilted the field toward one man. Import bans for his cement, policies shaped around his factories. And now that same state stands in front of a judge, arguing that its own creation has grown too big to control. The dependency has inverted. In the beginning, Dangote needed presidents, a phone call, a license, a ban. Today, any president needs him. Cut him off and the pumps run dry. The man is no longer in the economy. The man is infrastructure. You can nationalize an oil field. You can fire a minister. But how do you fire the only refinery? There is no law for that. There is no precedent for that. The state built a champion and woke up with a landlord. So how does the market price a landlord? Look at 2026. While the monopoly case sits in court, his fortune has grown by $3.7 billion, roughly $10 million a day, driven precisely by the refinery. Analysts openly say the expansion could make him one of the richest men alive. Full stop. Meanwhile, the country that hosts the miracle, 6 out of 10 Nigerians live in poverty. The richest man in Africa and some of the poorest people on earth share the same fuel queue. And here's the honest part, because serious people genuinely disagree on this one. One camp says, Dangote is the best thing that ever happened to Nigerian industry. Real refining, real fertilizer, real jobs that no foreign investor ever delivered. The other camp says, a nation just swapped foreign dependency for domestic dependency, and a monopoly with a friendly face is still a monopoly. Both camps hold real evidence. Nobody, not the economists, not the courts, knows yet which one history will side with. What nobody disputes is the shape of the thing. One man, one tap, 200 million people downstream. And that shape is not staying in Nigeria. The refinery is expanding toward 1.4 million barrels a day, which would out-refine every plant in Europe or America. Tankers already carry his fuel to other African markets, and the ambition is openly continental. The bigger the pipe gets, the more countries stand downstream of one man's valve, one private valve, an entire region's bloodstream. History has a word for entities like that, but it's usually reserved for states. So let's close the riddle from the start. Africa's richest man isn't self-made, but the twist is that he isn't state-made either. Not anymore. He's state-made, and now the state is his. The creature outgrew the creator, legally in broad daylight, one policy at a time. And that's why this was never an African story. It's the clearest X-ray ever taken of a game played on every continent. Get close to the state, shape the rules, become so essential that the rules can no longer touch you. In Washington, they call it lobbying. In Seoul, they called it chaebols. In Lagos, it has a face and a name. The most profitable product on Earth isn't oil or cement or software. It's the state itself. Now look around your own country and ask the uncomfortable version of the question, which company has become so essential that your government can no longer say no to it? Drop its name in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how far this pattern travels.